How did you get to New York City? What's the story?
So I was living in LA without a car for 3 years in like the late 90s. And I was, at the time, I was trying to be a dancer. I was really intensely dancing like 12 classes a week. And that was my vision. And then I had this moment where I was really disillusioned. I realized like dance was not working. And so I stopped dancing. It was making me very unhappy. And and so then I was kind of just like, what am I doing? I was 24, 25, and I was just kind of lost. And I was like walking around. I just spent months just walking around LA.
Wow.
I was like, I didn't know what to do. So I was like, I'll just go on a walk. And I would just walk and walk and walk. And one day I was walking from my apartment in Hollywood to the Abbey in West Hollywood and walking along Santa Monica Boulevard. And it was like the hills, it was a full moon. It was so beautiful. I was like, God, I love walking. I was like, it'd be so great. I wish there were other people walking on the street with me. I was like, I'm going to move to New York. And like, I got to the Abbey. I told my friends, I'm moving to New York. And like 2 weeks later, I moved to New York. So that's how it happened. It was completely, I had visited here once when I lived in Chicago. I came for a weekend just to visit a friend. It was my first time. And literally the minute I took the train in from JFK, she lived in Spanish Harlem. The minute I came out of the subway, I was like, it was love at first sight. I was like, I'm living here. And by the end of that weekend, I had the want ads. I was like looking for apartments and jobs. And then I ended up going to LA for 3 years. And so, but yeah, it was very spontaneous, but it was also like, I was very drawn here and just knew,
Mostly because of the density of people, or were there other things that were encouraging you to come here?
I mean, I don't even know that I would have said the density of people was what did it, but like, I can just tell you coming out of that subway in whenever that was in 1998 or whatever, the minute I was on the street and just the energy, the vibrancy, I had never experienced anything like it. It was just, it was instant. It's like you could just feel like, wow, this is so amazing. And throughout the course of that weekend, I mean, I remember one of the things that really stood out and struck me was just how I was like, oh my God, these people are normal. Like I would ask someone for directions on the street and they'd be like, they would just tell you. And with no, I grew up in Missouri, Arkansas, Alaska, very small towns, Midwest. I was in Chicago, the Midwest culture, and just how people are so, I don't know. I never felt like I fit in there somehow. I was always like, I don't know. People were so strangely timid or something. And New Yorkers just were like, they just talked to you like a normal person, which I just immediately felt very connected and very like, oh, this place, I get it, but actually, the density of the people like really freaked me out that weekend. I remember we took a walk from my friend's apartment in Harlem and just walked all the way down to Times Square. And I remember I was so overwhelmed. I was just like, just so overstimulated. And by the time we got to Times Square, I was like freaking out. I was like, I have to go inside somewhere. And we went into some restaurant and it was like, there were still so many people. And, at some other point that weekend, I remember walking over whatever that park is called on the west side and kind of wanting to just get away. And I walked over and then there was Jersey, just more people. And I was just like, oh my God, you can't ever get away. So that part was actually really, that felt intense, but it was like, in spite of that, actually, I was like, still, it's the place. So
what did you do to support yourself? I know you were moving away from dancing. So what did you do?
Well, when I first moved here, I mean, and I wasn't I didn't make money as dancing. I mean, I made money as a go-go boy in dancing in clubs. That was like my first performing job in LA. But basically when I got here, I had one night working at the Tiffany Diner, an overnight shift. And it was like the worst thing ever. And I did one day there, and I did one day at this kind of like an art curio shop in the East Village, which was kind of great, but one day. And then I got a temp job at Beth Israel Hospital in their operating room scheduling department. And that became, I worked in healthcare for 15 years from that. I just worked my way up and I became a manager, and then it just grew. And so I kind of I had a very stable day job that I just, kind of fell into. Yeah.
And during that time, were you able to continue to pursue artistic interests that you had, or did you take a break? What were you up to?
No, there was no break. I mean, I was in my 20s. I was thriving and not at all taking any sort of breaks. I mean, I wasn't dancing anymore, but very soon after arriving here, I mean, like immediately, I started going out to parties, and there were so many theme parties. It was like everything had a theme. So it's like dress for this occasion. So I started dressing up for things, which had not been a thing in LA or Chicago. I mean, Halloween.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know, I can't think of any other sort of theme parties before I moved here. And I had no background or interest or any concept that I would do anything with makeup or fashion at all. Like that never even occurred to me. But very quickly, it was just like, oh, this is so fun. It's like, and you can just dress like a freak and walk down the street. And I really loved that. And then I had been here, I don't know, maybe a year or so. And I was I wasn't performing. I went to this party. It was Radical Fairies. And Hadassah Gross was this like drag Jewish, I don't know what her title would be, but actually there's an amazing documentary about this guy called, I don't know what, I'll have to think of it, but this guy who did this drag character is actually like a descendant of like 150 generations of rabbis in Israel. And he came to New York because he was outed, and he has just a whole fascinating story.
Wow.
That there's this incredible documentary about him. At any rate, he was there, and it was an Easter party, and they were doing a whole Easter story, and I had long curly hair at the time and a little beard. And so they were like, oh, will you be Jesus? I was like, yes, absolutely. And so from that, there was an artist in the audience named Derek Jackson, and he then asked if he could shoot me as Jesus. And I was like, okay, sure. And so then that led into a whole series of performances where he would dress me as something, usually drag, some kind of drag adjacent character. And then we would do these like weird performance art things. Which I had never done any of that before, but I was like, oh, this is fun. I'm into this. And so at some point he left the city, and I was like, oh, that was so great. Like I was like, oh, well, what if I just tried to do my own makeup and my own performances? And so that's exactly how I started kind of dabbling in drag and performance in that context.
Did you at that point sort of put the word out that you were open to helping people with that for parties, for events, or how did it kind of jumpstart? How did it get going?
No. I mean, that I was solely doing things that just excited me personally. And I was very much performing. It was very much about me expressing myself, about me transforming. It was like this very personal journey of me and my self-expression and self-discovery. And so it was really, I was my own canvas. I really developed, I really developed just organically, and with nightlife as kind of a laboratory, over many, many years, and it just kind of grew and evolved, and probably the first time that I made a headpiece, I was walking on 6th Avenue. Someone had thrown out these aluminum vertical blinds, and they were like shiny, and I was like, ooh, I want to make a metal wig. That was my concept. And so I took those home, and that became my first headpiece. And then I used those aluminum blinds until they were all gone. I made so many metal swirly headpieces and different things. And then I just got really addicted to the headpiece as a, I don't know what it was about it, but I spent the next, well, until now, basically making headpieces. And, first it was just, I was go-go dancing. I was a go-go boy. First I was a go-go boy just as, in a thong and a cute little twink, and loved it. And then I added drag, kind of gender bender, gender fuck thing, which was great. And then it just became more and more costume and more elaborate and transformative. And then at some point, people started having Brandon Voss. I was doing a lot of gigs for him, and he started having me dress the other go-go boys. So it's all these hot guys, and I would put them in, horns and antlers and all kinds of crazy shit. And then the next kind of churning point, I was doing a headpiece design class at Makeup Forever Academy, and for the final, all of the students have to they have to make a headpiece, and they have to body paint and makeup on full body paint and makeup on a model and a headpiece. So I would come in, teach them how to do the headpieces, and then I was at the final, their final, which is basically a runway show, and there was this stunning model in the headpiece and the body paint and the makeup, which is everything that I do, but they were just so dynamic. And I met them, Issa, and they're a professional dancer. And so I was like, oh, this is the next level. I had just been costuming go-go boys who were like hot, just like muscle dudes who don't necessarily have a performative flair per se. So through Issa, I got this whole company basically of incredible dancers. And so I started costuming them, and that really shifted. It just completely transformed because it made so much more sense, because these dancers then like inhabit the fantasy and project, the dynamism and the kind of gravitas of these costumes. And it really just elevated everything. And yeah, it just kept growing from there, basically.
Did you always have a talent, or did you know you had a talent for this kind of work when you were younger, or did you really discover that this was something you could do here?
Completely here. I had no, as I said, I had no concept or interest, or it never even occurred to me to do. I mean, I loved Halloween, and I had made some very basic Halloween, like very, very basic, and that was fun, but it never occurred to me that you could just do it all year round for 20 years. But when I was younger, I mean, I was always very creative, and I liked to kind of make little design moments in my home. When I lived at home with my parents, I would like paint flowers half colors and paint the bathroom window shades, and make in my bedroom in the basement, I made this whole kind of installation by ripping all the guts out of cassette tapes. And so I was always doing things like that, kind of, I don't know, just random sort of sculptural things with light and color. And in art class, like in high school, I got into portraiture. So I did like photorealism pencil portraits, and I really was obsessed with that throughout high school and got pretty good at that. And when I went to the Art Institute of Chicago for 1 year before dropping out, and my goal there was to do interior design. That's what I thought I would do. While at the Art Institute, I got into the performance art department, and that just totally opened a whole other direction. I had never considered that particularly. So that was really cool. And in that, even though I was only there for a year, you had this laboratory to just create anything in the context of a performance, with visual, with movement, with whatever. So that was very interesting. When I dropped out of the Art Institute, I was like, what's next? I have to get a job. And I got a job at the Schubert Theater. And the first day working at the Schubert, Hubbard Street Dance Company was performing, and I had never seen dance before. And that's what then got me onto I'm going to be a dancer. And so I danced for 4 years, went to LA. And so interestingly and ironically now, I work with the most talented dancers in the world. I am dancing. I'm doing makeup. I'm like all the things are, I'm doing all of it basically.
You said earlier in the conversation that when you had a moment where you were done with dancing, it wasn't serving you anymore. It sounds like it was almost painful.
It was very painful.
What happened?
It was very painful because I started dancing when I was 20.
Yeah.
And, there are some men who can start late and who can really have a thriving career. But for the most part, people who are going to be professional dancers start when they're children.
Yeah.
And so, but I just wanted it so badly. I loved it so much. I thought it was so beautiful and so incredible. And so I was really, really working really hard and pushing myself so hard. But I just, at some point, had to face the fact that I just didn't have the natural ability to be the kind of dancer that at that time I thought I had to be. I wanted to be. I had to be that like amazing, strong, leaping, spinning,
Yeah.
And again, there are some men who are like super athletic and they can start really late and do it. But it was so painful. You go in there in these classes and it's like, the mirrors are just there staring at you. And, there's some like 8-year-old girl who's just so much better. Or, and it's devastating. And it was so hard, especially, in my early 20s when it was so much about self-worth. And, I just couldn't see a world where like, there's room for, there's room for like all kinds of expression, and that, maybe your way of moving is actually really beautiful and valid and can be something. No, I was like, I had to fit into, what that world was dictating, and I was falling short. And it was really devastating because I wanted it so badly. And so I just had to quit. I just had to stop. And, which is great because then when I stopped, then it opened up all these other things and other expressions. And ultimately, like I said, I've come back to performance that is so much more expansive than what I could have imagined,
The devastation was in admitting that truth to yourself.
Yeah. Well, the devastation was, that was just like, oh, I won't ever be that. I can't be that. And that was devastating. It really was.
What does it take to be that?
To be that, like what I wanted to be at that time? I mean, I wanted to be a completely different person, basically, and that's what happened. I went home one day and I was just like so unhappy. And I was like, why do I want to be a dancer? I just wrote it down. Why do I want to be a dancer? Dancers are strong. Dancers are beautiful. That's all I came up with. And I thought, those aren't great reasons. Maybe I need to like find that within myself, and trying to attain that I am strong and beautiful by becoming this vision of what that was to me. Yeah.
Was that career path and the artistic pursuit I'm from the Midwest as well. Like, was that encouraged by your community you grew up in? What's that story?
No, I mean, like I said, I had never even seen dance until I was 20 years old in Chicago. So I grew up in a very small town, for the most part, Ozark, Missouri. That's where I was basically from 5th grade until my senior, until I graduated high school. And other than that, we lived in Alaska for 8 years in the wilderness. We lived in a tiny town in Arkansas in the mountains. And my family is like they're conservative, to say the least. It was basically a home church, like a cult.
Whoa.
Like they're independent missionary Baptists. It's extremely, extremely devout, intense religion. So I was completely isolated. We moved around a lot. We were very insulated. my grandfather was the preacher. My family was the congregation. We didn't have television, like didn't listen to pop music. I was very removed from pop culture, like throughout most of childhood.
I don't know if you have siblings, but what was that like?
I have 4 older brothers. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you remember from that time for yourself?
From childhood?
Well, just growing up in that kind of an environment, given what you do now and what clearly it seems like your passion is.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, of course, I hadn't realized any of that at the time. I mean, I think that being so repressed and so repressed for so long, I think probably led to an explosive creative need to this real need to just be seen and to be extravagant and bold and colorful and 14 feet tall and whatever. But at the time, it was kind of survival in a way, just getting through. And I'm gay. Of course, that also was not, that was like not even culturally an option, much less in the context of my family and the religion. I mean, it was, so that was a much, much, much bigger source of conflict and shame and all kinds of things. Forget my desire to be creative. I mean, that was just like, there were much bigger fish to fry just getting through that.
Was the move to Chicago really the first break with the family trajectory?
No, I mean, I went to University of Missouri in Columbia for 1 year, just out of default because I didn't figure anything else out. 3 of my older brothers went there. And so after 1 year, I was like, I've got to get away from my family altogether. And so I moved just randomly to Colorado for 6 months. And then I applied to the Art Institute. I wanted to do that. And so that's how I got to Chicago. And certainly the idea of Chicago seemed, I'd never been. But it was like, it's a city. Great. Cool. I'll go. Which was kind of great because Chicago, it was like the right order. I was in Colorado Springs. That's like 500,000 people. Then Chicago for 3 years, then LA, and then New York. It kind of, I stepped my way up in the graduated in urban experiences.
I don't know if this is still visceral for you or something that you can recall emotionally, but like as you begin to have your own life in these various cities, do you remember like an undeniable sense of like personal liberation of getting out of this repressive environment? I don't know what you remember from that transition, but
absolutely. I mean, I can tell you just the first day being at University of Missouri in Columbia. I mean, I remember being in the dorm room. I guess my parents dropped me off and left. And that moment I just was like, oh my God, I'm free. I remember it was like a very sort of uninspiring visual, but there were like out my dorm window, there was like a truck, like they were like, what are those trucks that roll out the tar and they kind of flatten the tar down on the that's what was happening. And it was like the smell of tar and that, but I was just like, I just felt I'd never felt better. It was like, this is amazing. And also kind of, intensely like, wow, what do I do? Because there had always been such intense structure and rigidity and, and so what I did was I got a 0.9. That's what I did. But I had a great time.
Classic.
I had a really, really good time. And but it was a long journey that frankly, I am still untangling. You grow up in that intense, fundamental cult-like world, and it takes a very long time to liberate yourself and to untangle, all those kind of formative things. So, but yeah.
What was cult-like about it? Maybe the whole thing, but what was cult-like about it?
my grandfather was the preacher.
Yeah.
My family was the congregation. Everyone else was going to hell. There was no other option. There was no conversation of like, well, what do you believe? Or, it was just, this is reality, period. Everything else is a lie. I mean, I guess if you look at like the actual definition of a cult, you have like the charismatic leader. And so, it probably doesn't fit into that actual definition. I say cult-like because I think that just the mental and emotional experience of being in that is probably similar. I mean, I don't know. Or maybe even more intense because it was just my family.
This is now 20 plus years removed from that.
Well, more.
Even more.
I'm now 48, so 30 years removed.
With that amount of distance, what do you make of how people get entangled in something like this? How your family was
they
enraptured.
grew up in it. They simply grew up in it. I mean, I think that's, that I understand. When people, it's harder for me to understand when people kind of go into these things, but I feel like if you're getting seduced into a cult, it's going to look much more attractive on the outside than what we had going on. That was like, no one would join this of their own accord. I mean, there was nothing like fun or wasn't like, ooh, I can't wait to sign up. They weren't like, anyway. Yeah.
I'd love to come back to the work you do now.
Yeah.
And you said earlier that, a lot of the work you are working with the kind of dancers it sounds like you wanted to be.
Absolutely.
At one point.
Absolutely.
What does an average week look like for you now? What are you up to? What's the work look like in detail?
Well, there really is literally no average week. I mean, last week was insane. I had 4 events and a photo shoot, and I made an entire new costume, and I was costuming 7 other people. And it was completely crazy. And I didn't stop from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. And I only slept 4 hours. And I was like so depleted by the end that it took me 2 days to recover. But for the previous 3 weeks, I had done, I had no gigs. And so, for me, like the challenge really is, and I've been working for myself full time for 11 years.
Wow.
So I left healthcare 11 years ago. And the challenge for me personally has been, one, accepting that this is a perfectly valid and useful and beneficial and legitimate way to exist.
Yeah.
And then 2, finding this, creating structure for myself and using my downtime effectively to like support my own goals and to further like, where I want to go. That has been so challenging. I just by nature, and probably by growing up in the environment that I did, I respond very well to structure and deadlines and basically responding to external forces. That's when I really shine. You give me a deadline for 2 days from now, I will work miracles and pull off shit that's incredible. When I'm left alone, it's like, do whatever you want for the next month.
It's 0.9 time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I really flounder. So I'm definitely with each passing season, it's like a growth process. And I'm also learning that it's about collaboration and working with other people and reaching out and, finding ways to just work with others and to create things together. So, and there's some of that happening, which is really cool. So, yeah, I forgot what the question was in the first place.
Is it primarily dancers that you costume? Is it a whole host of different types of people? Who typically are your clients?
Well, So my clients, for the most part, are private. Sometimes it's event companies, but usually I'll just get direct bookings from private clients, people who are getting married and having a really extravagant wedding, or doing a cruise, or throwing a fabulous birthday party. I do galas, I do events and parades and different things. But so the clients are people with some kind of resources who want something spectacular in the form of living art at their event. And so I work with any number of dancers. Sometimes it's just straight up models if people want that. Since I've been performing in New York for 20 plus years, I have a whole community of incredible, talented people that do all sorts of things. And I could put all those people in costumes. So I'll work with contortionists and aerialists and, mentalists and singers. And I've done all the gamut of all of that.
Do you feel like this is your calling in a certain way, that this is kind of, for lack of a better phrase, like what you're meant to be doing?
I think if I were to have a calling, I would say it is expressing myself in like a joyful, full-bodied, vibrant way, and then letting other people see and experience that, and that kind of creates permission for them to do the same. I mean, I think if I were to boil it down to a calling, it probably would be that.
I would imagine you have seen some fucking insane parties.
Oh, I have. I really, really have.
What are the best, I don't know if any pop to the top of your head, but like the best parties, experiences you've witnessed in your time in New York?
I mean, there are different versions of the best. I mean, there are the kind of most like extreme and extravagant and over the top, whether in New York or all over the world, which is great. But honestly, one of the best things that I've experienced recently was I did the dance parade last weekend, and lining up, just a highlight of my year to date was going from where we kind of got ready, parked the car, to the start of the parade route on 17th between 5th and 6th. They basically had the entire parade was just scrunched in there waiting to start. So I'm on my stilts and we're passing through. And so I'm up above. I could see everyone. And it was just so fantastic. All the kids in their little outfits and all the different ethnic dance troupes and Japanese Buto and all the South American costumes and, teenage kids doing like cosplay and martial arts. And it was just so incredible, so beautiful, so New York, and truly like one of the most inspiring moments I've had in a really long time. So that feeling for me is like the best. And you don't necessarily, I don't have that feeling when I do a lot of these other parties. There are I've seen some insane over the top things that it's like, wow, this is amazing and kind of gross, frankly. So it's like, oh, these 150 people are experiencing this $4 million event. It is amazing. It's like, wow, you've got the most talented people in the world doing things at your whim, which is amazing. But it's, it can be a little complicated, but I'm happy to be there. It's a great way to make a living. And in some of those settings, people really value what I do. So that's amazing. They're willing to like bring me on and it's great to be recognized and appreciated for what I'm bringing.
Yeah. Given that it sounds like it's the public events that really resonate with you.
Yeah.
What are the great public spectacles for someone that doesn't know New York that well or just moved here like me?
Oh,
what's worth going to?
Oh gosh, the Mermaid Parade is fabulous. The Mermaid Parade is June 21st this year. That's the official opening of Coney Island. And it's so great. It's totally DIY. Everybody's just doing their own wacky shit. It's so fabulous and fun and perfectly New York. That's like number one. I mean, Halloween is, of course, Halloween. I don't know, all of those sort of parade days are so amazing. I've actually never been to the Labor Day carnival, which I've always wanted to go to, but haven't ever been to. But yeah, those are great. And I don't know, there's something called the Illumination Light Festival, which I think is going to be in its 4th or 5th year now, and I've done that several times, and it's awesome because it's all light related art. But again, it's just completely free and open to the public, and so it's so gratifying and meaningful to be doing what I do, on my stilts and transformed into this extravagant creature, and to have like some little old Puerto Rican grandma or just random people who don't see this, who have never wouldn't see this. And so to have that experience and those interactions with them, and you see just like a little spark or like revulsion or whatever it is, it's that feels meaningful in a way. It feels like, oh, this, what? This is worth doing. So yeah, that's a good one too. That's in September. And I think this year it's going to be in a new park down by South Street Seaport that'll be opening.
There's no way I can talk to you without talking about your incredible online presence.
Yeah.
And this is how I first got introduced to your work. I'm wondering what social media has unlocked for you and how you think about that, because I know some of your videos have been viewed by millions of people.
Yeah.
How has it affected your career and life, that outlet, good and bad?
Yeah, that is funny because I mean, I had an Instagram following, like not too crazy, but fine. And then during the pandemic, I had signed up for TikTok, but hadn't even like looked at it. And during the pandemic, I started looking at it and got like, very addicted. And then at some point I was like, oh my God, this is just horrible. I'm going to delete this. And then I was like, well, I might as well put a video up because that was the whole point. Let me just try. So I put up a video and it got 6 million views. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is cool. And so then during the pandemic, I started making, and, there's this sort of mirror duet that I do where I have a mirror down my face. There's 2 characters. And I had only done that on stage. And I had never made a video of it. And on stage, it's cool and it's great. But when you make the video, then it's just completely controlled and you can really, really work with that illusion. And it was the perfect time. I was locked in my apartment with everyone else. And so I started making those videos. And yeah, I mean, I've got videos that have been viewed 40 million times and 20 million. I mean, it was wild. And at the time, it felt like very exciting. And then, it got on the news and Elton saw it. And then I got invited, went on America's Got Talent. And I got paid to make some videos. And, it was very cool. And of course, it was very gratifying. It felt amazing. I was like, oh my God, I've hit it. Like, it's like the big time now. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Anything's possible. And ultimately, like every other experience I've had where I felt that way, you just kind of realize, oh no, there is no like moment where everything changes and suddenly you're like, it's happening. It's like, no, that's just a thing. You'll have a moment. Some things may come of it. And then you just keep going and you make the next thing. But yeah, I mean, with the social media thing, I'll tell you the way I feel about it is when I have a video that goes viral, I think it's awesome. When I have a video that doesn't, I think it's a waste of time and stupid. And yeah, it's very, like so many things, it's very conflicting because I do think it's just generally horrible. And I'm addicted to the phone and I hate it. And I feel like we all are. And so there's that part. On the other hand, I do see a lot of really cool art and really funny, smart people doing things that are great and inspiring. So yeah, it's like a balancing act. And currently, it has gotten. I've just kind of fallen off of it, and so as a result, it's like, oh, you see like your numbers dwindle, and when you post something, it doesn't have the reach that it did, and that's frustrating. And I do like that there's a platform that I can create these videos for, where they'll be seen. And that alone is fantastic. It's like, well, that's the point. I do want to make things that people will see. I mean, I am a performer, and I like feedback, and I like people to see what I do. So that alone is great. And there's also this feeling that if I invested more and did it more seriously, then it could lead to more opportunities and blah, blah, blah. And so it kind of goes around and around. But there's only so much time and creative energy. And yeah.
This is probably not a bad segue to move into asking you about how you think about success in your life. And if you are currently feel like you are living the success you wanted, that like the life you have is the life you dreamt of 10 years ago. How do you think about your future, your life right now as it pertains to the word success?
Yeah, I mean, I actually feel like I'm very successful. I mean, it depends on which day you ask me. But the fact is, I am making my living, and have been for 11 years, as an artist. That's amazing. And I definitely don't take that for granted. And I feel very fortunate, and just very pleased that I get to do that. And yeah, I think at this moment, yeah, that is success. I mean, the fact that I get to create basically what I want to create. I have people reach out to me, and they basically let me do what I want. I kind of, they may say, okay, I'm looking for this kind of costume, or I'm looking for this kind of performance. And then I toss back like, okay, I'm going to make this, and that works. So that is also pretty amazing. I mean, that's a really unique, I think that's a pretty unique spot to be in. And yeah, ultimately I'm expressing all these different parts of myself that I really want to express. I mean, so it's been great. I definitely want different expressions. I definitely want I want more public facing performance and art. I want more engagement with the public. I want I want to create my own shows. Completely separate from clients. I want to, and I'm working on that. So that's exciting. So I feel like, there are many other markers that I want to reach. But yeah, if this were it, if I had to stop today, I would be like, yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the comment you made earlier about how, and I want to close on this, this question, that all of that suppression earlier in life led to this explosion. And I've seen some of your artwork, and that's the way it looks to me. It's big, it's beautiful, it's bold, it's eye-catching. You've been in New York for more than 20 years, it sounds like. What does this city mean to you?
Oh, my. I mean, yeah, I've been here. It'll be 23 years on July 3rd, actually. Yeah, I mean, I feel that everything that I'm doing, who knows if it would have happened had I not been in New York. I mean, this place is such a there's so much creative energy. There's such community of people who are like making work all the time. And so you just feel that's just what's going on. So you're so supported in your own creation and your own, making things. Yeah. You just, it's just what time it is. And so there's that aspect as an artist, which is, I think, amazing. There's endless opportunities to have your work viewed, even if you decide, as I have done in the past, back in the day, just like, oh, I'm going to take it to the street and literally just go and do your thing on the street. You've got an audience because there's always someone. And then, but beyond that, just like the diversity and the beauty of the people and the culture and the endless sort of thriving everything that it is. And what I always say is, just on a personal level, the thing that I love about New York more than anything is it's the only place I've ever been in the world that wants you to be exactly who you are. The culture of the place is be yourself, unlike anywhere I've ever been. Anywhere else I've ever been, there is some culture that you have to fit into to some degree. In New York, be yourself, whatever that is. Because if you don't be yourself, it's not gonna work. You can't fool anyone here. So you just have to be yourself. And so that alone is a reason for me to stay.
Darrell, this is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.